My name is Callie, and I'm 29 years old. After our family reunion, I checked my account. It was drained. The number on the screen didn't make sense at first. I refreshed the app, then logged out and back in like that would magically fix it. My heart started pounding when I saw the balance again. $40,000. Gone. Not missing. Not pending. Drained. That money was my safety net. My future, years of overtime. Skipped vacations. And saying no when everyone else said yes. I stood in my parents' driveway staring at my phone. The sounds of laughter and clinking glasses still floating out of the house behind me. And for a moment I wondered if I was going to throw up. I walked back inside, my legs shaking. The reunion had been loud and messy. Aunts arguing about politics. Cousins bragging about new cars. My mom playing the perfect hostess. I found my parents in the living room, sitting side by side on the couch like they always did when they were feeling smug. I held up my phone without saying a word. My dad squinted at the screen, then leaned back and laughed, not nervous laughter. Not confused laughter, he snorted. Like it was funny, he said, "We needed it more than you." The room went quiet in my head, even though everyone else kept talking. I asked him what he meant, even though I already knew. My mom folded her arms and told me to lower my voice. She said family helps family, that I was young, that I could make the money back. She reminded me, again, how much they'd sacrificed raising me, how I owed them. When I told them they had no right, that the account was in my name only, my dad rolled his eyes. He said, "Don't be dramatic. It was just sitting there. Just sitting there. Like it hadn't taken me nearly a decade to build it." I felt my hands start to shake. People were watching now. My aunt stopped mid-sentence. My cousin pretended not to stare. My dad leaned forward, lowering his voice like he was doing me a favor. He told me if I made a scene, I'd embarrass the whole family. He told me to think about my reputation. That word, reputation, hit me harder than the missing money. Because my whole life, they'd trained me to swallow things to protect theirs. I told them I wanted it back. All of it. Immediately. My mom laughed this time. Sharp and dismissive. She said the money was already spoken for. Debts, investments, a new start. She said I should be proud to help my parents. When I asked how they even got access, my dad shrugged and said, "You trusted us once. Guess that trust paid off." That's when something in me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, but cleanly. Like a wire finally breaking, trembling. I reached for my bag and said, "Then you won't mind what's coming next." I didn't know yet exactly how those words would land, but I meant them. Every single one. They laughed. Actually laughed. My dad leaned back again, crossing his arms, looking around the room like he'd just won. My mom smiled at my aunt as if this was all a misunderstanding that would blow over. They thought I was bluffing. They always did. To them, I was still the obedient daughter who backed down, who forgave, who absorbed the damage quietly. I walked out of the living room, my chest tight, my ears ringing. I sat in my car for a long minute, gripping the steering wheel, replaying everything. The access, the transfer, the timing, right after the reunion, when everyone was distracted. This wasn't an accident. This was planned. And for the first time, instead of blaming myself for trusting them, I felt something colder and steadier take over. I went back inside just as someone popped a bottle in the kitchen. The sound made me flinch. My parents were still laughing, telling a story like nothing had happened. I stood near the door, watching them, memorizing their faces. I realized then that they truly believed they were untouchable. That being my parents protected them from consequences. They were wrong. As they laughed, a loud bang shook the house. The front door rattled so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. Conversation stopped mid-word. Heads turned. The laughter died instantly. The door flew open and two uniformed police officers stepped inside, followed by a man in a dark blazer holding a leather folder. For a split second, nobody moved. Then my mom stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly across the floor. My dad's smile vanished like it had never existed. The room filled with a thick, choking silence, broken only by the faint sound of someone's phone still playing music from the kitchen. One of the officers spoke calmly, asking my parents by name. When they nodded, the officer said they were there regarding a report of financial theft and unauthorized account access. My dad laughed again, but this time it was high and thin. He said there had to be some mistake, that this was a private family matter. The man in the blazer, who introduced himself as a financial crimes investigator, opened his folder and began reading dates, amounts, and transaction IDs out loud. Each number felt like a hammer strike. $140,000. Transferred in full. No authorization. No joint ownership. My mom's face went pale. She tried to interrupt, saying I had given permission, that I was confused, emotional. The investigator looked up and asked if she had anything in writing. She didn't. He asked if the account was legally hers. It wasn't. He asked if there was a power of attorney. There wasn't. Every question boxed them in tighter. And for the first time in my life, I watched my parents run out of words. People started whispering. My aunt covered her mouth. My cousin slowly backed toward the hallway, like she didn't want to be associated with what was happening. My dad finally turned and looked at me. Really looked at me, his eyes sharp with warning. He told the officers this was a misunderstanding caused by a disgruntled daughter. He said I'd always been dramatic, always held grudges. He said I was trying to ruin the family. I spoke then, my voice steadier than I expected. I told them exactly what happened. How I discovered the account was drained. How my parents admitted it. How my dad said, "We needed it more than you." The investigator wrote it down. One of the officers asked my dad if he'd said that. He hesitated just a second too long before denying it. That pause said everything. My mom started crying, not soft tears but loud performative sobs. She said she was sick. That stress made her do things she didn't mean to do. She said she was my mother, that I wouldn't really press charges. The officer looked at me and asked if I wanted to proceed with the report. My parents both turned toward me at the same time. The room seemed to tilt. This was the moment they'd relied on my whole life. The moment I was supposed to back down. I didn't. I said yes. The investigator explained what would happen next. Frozen accounts, asset reviews, potential charges depending on where the money had gone. When he mentioned that some of the funds had already been moved again, toward a risky investment my dad had made without understanding it, my dad exploded. He shouted that it was his money now, that he'd taken care of me for years. One of the officers stepped closer and told him to lower his voice. That only made it worse. Watching my father being told to calm down by a stranger was surreal. This was the man who used to silence me with a look. Now his hands were shaking. My mom kept saying my name over and over, begging, reminding me of birthdays, school pickups, sacrifices. Every word felt like a hook meant to pull me back into the role I'd finally stepped out of. The officers asked my parents to sit while they finished documenting the scene. The laughter, the reunion energy, the sense of family, it was all gone. What remained was the truth, laid out in front of everyone. I noticed then how quiet it was without their control filling the space. How small they suddenly looked. When the officers escorted my parents toward the front door to continue the process downtown, my dad twisted around and stared at me. His face was red, his eyes burning. He told me I'd regret this, that no one would ever trust me again. That family was all that mattered in the end. I didn't respond. I just watched as the door closed behind them, the sound echoing through the house. After they were gone, nobody knew what to say. Some relatives avoided my eyes. Others stared at me like they were seeing a stranger. My aunt finally muttered that she didn't know the full story. I picked up my bag. The same one I'd reached for earlier when I said they wouldn't mind what was coming next. My hands had stopped shaking. As I walked out, I realized something important. The money mattered. Yes, but what mattered more was that the fear was gone. The power they'd held over me for years had drained away just like my savings had. Only this time, it wasn't gone forever. It was already finding its way back to me. The weeks after that night were quiet in a way my life had never been before. No calls from my parents demanding explanations. No guilt-laced messages reminding me of who they were to me. Just official emails, bank notifications, and one steady truth unfolding piece by piece. The investigation moved faster than I expected. The investment my dad had rushed into collapsed almost immediately. Under scrutiny, flagged as fraudulent itself. Accounts were frozen, transactions reversed where possible, and the rest traced. I learned words I'd never wanted to know: embezzlement, unauthorized transfer, criminal liability, and with every update, the reality settled in. This wasn't family drama anymore. It was a crime. When I finally sat across from my parents at the station weeks later, with lawyers present and no audience to perform for, they looked older, smaller. My dad didn't snort or laugh. He stared at the table like it had personally betrayed him. My mom tried one last time to soften me, whispering that this had gone too far, that the police didn't need to be involved anymore. The detective calmly reminded her that it wasn't my decision alone now. That door had closed the moment the report was filed. Hearing that felt like a weight lifting off my chest. For once, I wasn't responsible for fixing what they broke. The money came back in stages. Not all at once, not cleanly, but it came back. Most of the $140,000 was recovered, and the rest was ordered to be repaid through legal restitution. Watching the balance slowly rebuild felt surreal. But what shocked me more was how little joy I felt about it. Relief, yes. Safety, yes. But no celebration. Because the real loss had already happened long before the money disappeared. Trust doesn't get refunded. Childhood wounds don't get reversed by court orders. Word spread through the family fast. Some people reached out quietly to apologize for not believing me. Others stayed silent. A few accused me of being heartless, of choosing money over blood. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I finally understood that people who benefit from your silence will always call you cruel when you speak. My parents stopped being the center of my decisions that day, and the peace that came with that choice was something I'd never known before. Months later, the case closed. Consequences landed where they belonged. I changed my accounts, my passwords, my boundaries. I moved apartments. I slept better. Sometimes I still hear my dad's voice in my head. We needed it more than you. But now it sounds distant, powerless, like an echo from a life I no longer live. I no longer flinch at raised voices. I no longer confuse obligation with love. I learned that being someone's child does not mean being their resource, their backup plan, or their excuse. On the anniversary of that reunion, I checked my account again. Not because I was afraid this time, but because I wanted to remind myself how far I'd come. The balance was stable, earned, mine. I stood in my kitchen, sunlight on the floor, and thought about the girl I was before all of this. The one who would have swallowed the loss, just to keep the peace. I wished I could tell her that peace bought with silence is never peace at all. If you're listening to this and something in your chest feels tight, if you've ever been told you owe people access to your life, your money, your future just because of who they are, remember this. Boundaries don't make you cruel. Consequences don't make you ungrateful. And choosing yourself doesn't mean you're alone. It means you're finally free. If this story moved you, helped you, or made you feel seen, subscribe to the channel, because more stories like this are coming. And sometimes hearing the truth is the first step toward taking your power back.